Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and today I'm going to go over all the Legion class, big major update highlights for everything coming out in Legion. Basically, with Legion, a lot of classes are getting updated, and I want to talk about the ones that I am the most excited about, and also some of the biggest changes that we've seen in WoW in the longest while. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. We're going to be talking about Warlocks, Hunters, Rogues, and Priests, as those are the classes that are having the most amount of change done to their classes to separate them from the rest. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let's begin. The first class is Warlocks, and the two specs that are getting the most amount of change are Affliction and Demonology. First one I want to talk about, which is the most hyped one, is Demonology, which is all about pets. You are basically the puppet master who weaves the webs and strings to control your puppets, which are demons. Lots and lots of pets. You can have, the maximum amount of pets I think you can have is like 5 fell imps, 2 doggies, which is basically 2 hellhounds, 2 doom guards, and a doom lord as well, all together hitting your target while you're empowering your demons. So as the whole playstyle of the class is heavily centered around your demons. A lot of abilities either empower demons or summon demons, and that's basically one of the coolest things ever. Demonology Warlocks do have metamorphosis that they lose, but in return they get to control a bunch more demons, which I was thinking was going to be the most exciting thing about them. While a lot of people were unhappy with the fact that demon hunters are taking away metamorphosis from warlocks, I thought to myself that this is a new start. This is a great way to refresh the spec and give it a whole new playstyle, and it sure does look like a lot of fun as you're summoning hellhounds out of the Twisted Nether, have 2 Doom Lords spinning blade storms, have a Doom Lord casting spells at your enemy while imps rain down from the sky on a meteor. It's just some of the coolest concepts I've ever seen in terms of having a class being all about pets, having a spec being all about pets. So I feel like Demonology is probably one of the most exciting classes coming out in Legion. The next spec of Warlock is Affliction, which is going to be all about dot damage. For the longest time, Affliction Warlocks have been mostly spec'd about dot damage and were the dot-based class for the Warlocks. But let's say in Pandaria, Immolate, and Doom and Corruption for Demonology, and Affliction with all their dots, the 3 Warlock specs weren't all that far different from one another. For the longest time, people couldn't tell an Affliction Warlock from a Shadow Priest, but now that Affliction Warlock is only about dots and is empowered by the dots, as their dots are even stronger, the whole spec and class and playstyle is dot based. Basically, they changed it so instead of having to put up dots on your enemy and then channel at your enemy just to deal consistent damage, you put up 2 dots, Corruption and Agony, and you use Unstable Affliction for your burst. You can again combo all this with abilities such as Haunt and whatever else your talents provide, but putting up an Unstable Affliction is one of your strongest spells in the game. So your whole sustain and your burst is completely redefined, and now your spec mostly about dot damage, as dots really is the core of your damage and nothing but damage. So I think it's one of the coolest ideas to change to the spec, to really separate it, to make it look different, because for the most part all 3 Warlock specs were way too similar in my opinion, and it was hard to tell which one was good and which one was, better. But even right now in WoD, Affliction Warlocks have insane amount of bursts with spam of Haunt, and seeing them coming back as more of a dot-based class, a dot-based spec, is very much exciting for me. So those are the changes with Warlocks. Let's move on to Hunters. The Hunter is the next class that is getting a lot of changes. We have Beastmaster Hunter and Survival Hunter getting plenty amount of tweaks for them. First of all, we'll start with the BM Hunter, which is again going to become a more pet-based class, a lot like the Demonology Warlock, except it still relies on the Hunter and for the Hunter to deal damage, but the Hunter is very much reliant on the pets and can summon more than 1 pet at a time. Now, they are separating Survival and Marksmanship to be less of Hunter based. Survival still has this Hunter pet combination, Marksman doesn't have a pet to begin with, and BM is the only one that can summon multiples and multiples of pets to help you fight. So I'm liking this whole trend of making specs that are more Puppet Master style, where the pet is a pretty vital addition to your play style and to your play mechanics. Just the fact that you're controlling more than one, more than one unit. You're controlling your character and the pet and the second pet and the third. Just the fact that we have more than one unit being controlled, I think is an interesting addition to World of Warcraft altogether, and overall an interesting addition to the gameplay of it all. The next spec that is getting changed, the biggest change, more like a revert back to somewhat back of vanilla, is survival hunters are going melee. Survival hunters are still going to have a lot of the hunter pet synergy, as the pet is still a pretty big innate part of your playstyle, but you're going to be a hunter more versed on traps, more versed on surviving with traps, more versed on the melee damage that you can combo together with your pet, and basically it's a warrior style of class with agility for gear, which scales usually very well, but you also have a pet on the side. So the fantasy of a class that is melee with a pet besides a DK is added in the game, with survival hunters getting melee back from back in the days of vanilla, getting the use of pet as one of the primary playstyles, and overall just still being the hunter that's all about traps and all about survivability, but changing the whole outlook of it, which is one of the biggest changes to the game. It's very exciting, it looks very promising. In certain terms, survival actually looks a little bit overpowered because it is the only spec of hunter that benefits the most out of traps, and it seems to have a really decent burst, but we'll see how it goes out as a Legion comes out as a final patch for us. The next class that is getting a lot of change is Combat Rogue. Is going to be gone in Legion completely, but Combat Rogue is getting replaced with the Outlaw Rogue spec. What's cool about the Outlaw Rogue spec, it has a high amount of pirate theme to it, from pistol shots to cannon barrages onto enemies. It is a spec of Rogue that is least geared for stealth and least focused on stealth. Again, further redefines all the specs apart from one another through a process of dehomogenization, just to make him a little bit more exciting and a little bit more unique to play altogether. The Outlaw Rogue is something I am more importantly looking forward to, as my spec of combat is going to be a rip, but I really want to see where the Outlaw Rogue will go and just how will it feel. There's a lot of mechanics that are removed and define the spec a little bit better compared to the other specs of Rogue, as well as other classes altogether. So I'm very much excited to see Outlaw Rogue and see how the Buccaneer, Pirate, Slashing, and Gashing, and all that jazz. The Discipline Priest is another spec and class that is getting a huge change in Legion. For now, we have two specs of Priest that are healers and one that is DPS. In Legion, you're going to have Shadow Priest being a DPS spec, Holy Priest being a healing spec, as well as Disc Priest still being a healing spec but in a different mechanic. Disc Priest is going to be half DPS, half healer for the playstyle of it. Sometimes you'll be dishing damage to enemies in order to heal your friendlies, other times you'll be putting bubbles and buffs on your friendlies just to keep them up and alive. But the whole playstyle is between dishing damage out to enemies for, I guess, a little bit of damage, but to heal your friendlies for a lot more, and swapping between dishing damage to enemies and healing your friendlies. So the whole playstyle for the spec and the whole atonement mechanic is going to be really clear once Legion comes out. For the longest time, Disc Priest has been the lesser or the greater spec of Priest, because usually it's the Holy Priest or the Disc Priest that are ahead. And again, both of those priests always dealt healing rather than damage. Even though Disc Priest does have mechanics and a fantasy where you can dish out damage to enemies while healing your friendlies, the whole mechanic and the fantasy didn't quite work for the longest time. I remember during the days of Pandaria when you could actually play Holy Priest and dish out damage, but then they nerfed all those mechanics all completely together. But now they're bringing in the healing and dealing damage as a mechanic for a healer in terms to heal, which is a really interesting and unique for out of all the healers in the game. So Disc Priests are going to be one of the more exciting specs to try out in Legion because of the complexity that comes with the healing playstyle. For all we know, it actually might be really simple and really easy, but we've never seen a healer that deals damage and heals in order to heal friendlies at all times. So I'm very excited to see this happen, and I hope I get to play it as soon as possible. I know that Demon Hunter isn't on the list, but we're talking about class changes rather than new classes being added in the game. Demon Hunter is of course exciting with two specs being added, the Havoc and Vengeance, and is looking to be a pretty exciting spec, kind of combination between of Rogue, Monk, maybe a bit of Feral, with a bit of magic damage here and there, which we don't have a lot of classes that do magic and physical damage except for Death Knights, Red Paladins, and Enhancement Shamans. But hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I had a lot of fun making this one, and basically I hope you guys use this video to recap exactly what is happening in Legion once it comes out. It looks like an exciting expansion, and if only I could get into the alpha, I'd be so happy. But otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed. My name is Dalrin, and I'll see you guys in the next one.